Hello, my name is Ben,
And my name's Josh.
and welcome back to FPL Graduates, and welcome back to another video where today we're going to be going through the potential transfer targets ahead of Game Week 28. At the time of recording, we've got one more game left of Game Week 27, which is the Arsenal game against Sheffield United, which from an FPL perspective is very important. But we're going to go through a quick look at those players you should be potentially looking at transferring into your team for this double game week.
Okay, so yeah, it's a big double game week this week. Obviously, Bournemouth and Luton are the doublers. Bournemouth facing Sheffield United at home and Luton at home. Luton are facing Crystal Palace away and Bournemouth away. So those are the assets that most managers, no matter what your strategy is are going to be looking towards, really. So we're going to take a look at a few of those, as well as some other different differentials that might work if you're potentially free hitting in 29, or even if you're not free hitting in 29 and you need the players playing in that week. We try to cover all bases basically. So coming up first are three Bournemouth defenders, all quite interesting in their own regard. So the first one up is Zabani. He's started every single Premier League game for Bournemouth this season. He is the definite safe pick if you're looking for a Bournemouth defender. He probably won't get much bonus points. He probably won't get any attack and returns. But if you're there for the clean sheets, then he's your man. What's your thoughts on him, Ben?
Yeah, I think it's the safe option. It's like the equivalent of going for like a Ruben Diaz or a
Yeah.
Virgil van Dijk in the team. Obviously, I think there's a little bit more of a degree of risk when getting players in for a double from Bournemouth, that they don't have the attacking returns because they're always more likely to concede than the
Yeah.
bigger teams. But as a safe minutes pick, absolutely fine with that one.
Yeah, definitely agree. He's in my team, just so you guys know. Senesi obviously got taken off inside the first 10 minutes against Burnley in game week 27, which got a lot of managers fuming because obviously a lot of people moved on him 1 week early. Obviously, as we're recording this at the start of the week, we don't have an update, but just from what it's looked like, it doesn't. It seems quite significant because he literally just wanted to come off straight away. He weren't risking anything. So we'll obviously keep an eye on press conferences for that. All the latest team news and stuff usually gets posted on our Instagram or Twitter, so make sure you go follow us over there. Sadesi though, Ben, would you be considering him if he was fit? Would you say he's a better option than Zabani? Obviously, he's point 0.2 more now, isn't he?
Yeah, he's point two more. Yes, he gets more attacking returns, but I think he's probably got as good a chance of getting attacking returns in this game week as the other defenders here. On 8 yellow cards as well.
Yeah.
So obviously a risk after the double game week. Yeah, even if we get information that he's fine, I'd probably put him down the pecking order just because of those sort of two or three reasonings.
Yeah, and then finally is Milos Kerkez. He's the left back at the moment for Bournemouth. Decent attacking threat, nothing too major, nothing along the lines of someone like Trent or anything like that. But the only other caveat with him is that obviously Lloyd Kelly would typically play left back. If he's fit, Lloyd Kelly's been injured for the last couple of weeks, hence why Kerkez has been playing. So again, that one a little bit more risky. You're sort of trading sort of nailedness for attacking threat a little bit. For me personally, I don't think it's worth it. What's your thoughts, Ben?
Yeah, I think you're getting a bit more attacking threat, but you're obviously getting the minutes risk as well. And I guess in this case, it depends what sort of manager you are and where you are at the moment. If
Yeah.
you're chasing and looking at high upside, Kirkes has a much higher ceiling. But if you're looking to maintain your rank, Zabani is probably the guy that you'd look to go towards. Kirkes is an interesting pick. Obviously, a lot more potential points going forwards for those, particularly for the double game week. But after that point, again, you're going to be looking at a transfer out for him pretty soon.
Yeah, definitely suited to like the wild carders in 30, 31, that sort of move. Moving on then to the other team that Dublin, Luton, checking out their defence. Alfie Doughty is obviously the main sort of option from their defence on corners as well as free kicks. Obviously got an assist against Aston Villa just last game week, and throughout this season has provided attacking returns for Luton. Two away fixtures where personally I don't see them keeping clean sheets in either, but could his attacking upside sort of be the reason you bring him in, Ben?
I'd be tempted if I didn't have him and I already had a Bournemouth defender. But for me, if you're looking at sort of bringing in two or three players for a double game week, I don't think he should be at the top of your list. Yes, he's going to get attacking returns, but his point ceiling is really about 6, 7 points, even sort of with the goals conceded for Luton. So, yeah, I think you're probably safer again with opting for the Bournemouth route for the potential of two, more likely two clean sheets anyway.
Yeah, 100%. And then going to someone, well, two players that are a little bit different. Nico Williams, he plays in game week 29. Nottingham Forest defensively have improved since Nuno has come in. Obviously, kept a clean sheet until the dying ends against Liverpool last game week. What's your thoughts on him, Ben? Would you look at him as maybe, say, if you didn't have a Charlie Taylor or someone of that like, would you sort of bring him in if you weren't free hitting in 29?
Yeah, that's the key. If I wasn't free hitting, I think I'd probably be looking at him and just assessing sort of how Forest are playing.
Mm.
But in all response to that, I've not really looked at him as an option because I'm not
Yeah.
because I'm using that free hit in 29. So yeah, from my perspective, could be a decent move for that one game week, and for those that are sort of planning around it, you got to sort of factor that in.
Yeah.
So yeah, decent option, but not one that I'd be considering personally.
Yeah, and then the last one is Munoz from Crystal Palace, sort of newly come into the side since they've moved to that back five system. Looked quite dangerous, to be fair, going forwards. He does blank in game week 29, but Crystal Palace have some nice fixtures now either side of that. So Crystal Palace defence could be a defence that we target. What's your thoughts on him so far, Ben? Obviously not played too much yet.
Yeah, not played too much. I think it's a wait and see for me with Munoz. He's looked very decent in the games he has played, but Crystal Palace are not a team that you can rely on week in, week out to get you defensive returns. So I'd probably be waiting and holding fire on that and seeing, obviously the fixtures turning well. Let's hope the form turns well. A couple of players to come back from injury as well for Crystal Palace. They've had a few injuries this season, so a wait and see for me. Okay, so the first midfielder we're going to talk about is a player that has really impressed me so far this season whenever I've watched Luton play, and it's Ross Barkley. Obviously, 2 away fixtures. From an attacking perspective, it seems a little bit more viable to go for a Luton player compared to a defender. Josh, what are your thoughts on Ross Barkley as a potential option this week?
Yeah, he's been fantastic, and if you watch Luton play, he's like integral to how they play, especially like in non set piece situations. For me, you're not going to get crazy amounts of returns off him unless you get super lucky. He's not going to get He's not got a huge goal threat. He's more assist threat. Plays like almost like a deep lying playmaker kind of role, swinging crosses in and stuff like that for Luton. So yeah, he's a decent option, and obviously price plays a massive part in this. He's only 5 million at the moment at the time of recording, so really good price point. If you're wanting to really bolster your team full of doublers, then for me he's probably one of the 3 best Luton assets that you can bring in.
Okay, so next up we've got Tavernier of Bournemouth, an interesting option, but again, a little bit of a minute's risk for Bournemouth, and also the goals are very much, unless they're through Solanke, don't know where they're coming from. Is that sort of your thoughts and feelings about Tavernier as a potential option for your midfield this week?
Yeah, I was thinking maybe a few weeks ago when the double got announced, that Tavernier and Solanke could be like the go-to attackers for them. But like you alluded to, the goals do sort of come from anywhere if it isn't Solanke. Obviously, we just saw against Burnley, Clivert getting on the score sheet as well as Semenyo. So it could be Tavernier's week next week, maybe. But for me, he's got a lot more assist threat, similar to Barkley, than goal threat. So yeah, one for me that I'd probably avoid personally. But again, if you're looking at that sort of triple up on Bournemouth, triple up on Luton, he might come into conversation as one of those attackers for Bournemouth.
So the next option that we're going to be talking about is a guy that has a fixture in Game Week 29. It's Jared Bowen, a very decent one in Game Week 28. A fixture in Game Week 29 looks to have turned a corner in his form and West Ham's form so far this season, especially with Lucas Paqueta being back in the team. That's really, really important for the output of Bowen. Josh, you've already got him in. If you didn't have him, would you be looking at him this week?
Yeah, 100%. He's probably one of the key ones to have for Game Week 29 if you're free hitting or if you're not free hitting. I think he's got to be in your team. Like you alluded to, West Ham have really turned the corner since Paqueta and Kudus have come back into the side. They've scored 7 goals in their last 2 games, and Bowen's got 4 returns in his last 2 games, which is phenomenal numbers, really. 25 points in the last 2 game weeks, so it's there. The fixtures are there. I think West Ham personally play decent football at the moment. A lot of West Ham fans were complaining about the style of play and stuff like that, but when I've watched them, they've been pretty decent to watch for the standard of their team. So for me, he's a definite own. The only sort of negative side to him is that he hasn't got anything in his arsenal in terms of like penalties or free kicks. That's like James Ward-Prowse. So if you're leaning towards that sort of route, then maybe Ward-Prowse is a better option for you.
Okay, so moving on into the Spurs boys now. Timo Werner, certainly an interesting option for those that are on a budget. As we know, Richarlison is potentially out of Game Week 29 now, so a lot of managers who may have moved early may have been stung by that, but for a lot of managers, he wasn't too high owned anyway. So Werner at that price point is really decent, and Heung-min Son obviously playing through the centre increases the appeal of him in an FPL team, and for Game Week 29 especially, I think every manager is going to own him, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I moved on Son early for the sake of Foden last week, just because of that ability of him down the middle. He could have easily come away with a few more returns, but like we'll see in the weeks going forward, we'll see Son returning consistently, especially in that 9 role, like he did earlier in the season, like he's done in seasons gone by when like Harry Kane's been injured, for example. It's just such a well-suited position for him, and he's such a clinical finisher. And then with Timo Werner, you've got a player there who's really raw. He's going to miss loads of chances, don't get me wrong. But, like you say, he's a cheap price. If you can't, or if you want to get another Spurs asset, maybe on that free hit later down the line, or if you're just wanting two in general, I think he's sort of maybe the second best. And you sort of save the money on Maddison, who definitely hasn't hit the form that he's been sort of performing as at the start of the season. So I think, yeah, at the moment, Timo Werner for me is probably the second best Spurs attacker.
Okay, and finally from the midfielders, we've got an interesting one. He scored again sort of this weekend. It's Marcus Rashford of Manchester United. A fixture coming up of Everton at home, blank, and then Brentford away. Two really tasty fixtures from a sort of attacking point of view in the space of 3 weeks. For those that are free hitting, this could potentially be a decent option at sort of punting and going against all of those people that are sort of bringing in the players that are going to be sort of playing for Game Week 29, especially if you're using your free hit.
Yeah, 100%. And like you alluded to, this one is definitely for the free hitters. Everton at home and then Brentford away. Two prime fixtures at the moment. Both teams shipping a lot of goals. Rashford as well seems to have, come back into himself a little bit in terms of the form. Unbelievable goal against City. Probably could have easily had another one as well if he sort of took his chances there. Not going to be facing as good of a defence though in these next 2 games coming up for him. So a decent option. Again, it could be any United's attacker really. Rasmus Højlund's obviously still out. If he comes back, I think he would sort of take that sort of position. But obviously as a midfield pick, I think Rashford's a decent option. So moving on to the forwards, and then we're going to kick it off with Dominic Solanke. We spoke about him last week as well, so we won't touch on him for too long. You sort of need him in your team for double game week 28. He'll be definitely probably the most captain player this game week. 2 home fixtures against 2 of the worst sides in the league defensively. It's a no-brainer, right, Ben?
Yeah, everyone's going to have him. Everyone's going to captain him. He's going to be, in terms of an EO, probably 150, 160% expected ownership, potentially probably higher than Haaland was this week, which is crazy. But it's just a testament. He's been in good form, albeit blanked against Burnley. But the 2 fixtures are so tasty that you just can't ignore him, especially when he's such a talismanic figure up front for Bournemouth.
Yeah, 100%. Next up is Ivan Toney. Again, this is for free hitters or non-free hitters. Obviously, he has that fixture in Game Week 29. For me, he's not necessarily been looking too great the last couple of weeks, but if I was going into that game week, I think I need to find a way to sort of bring him into my team. It might not be this week. I'd probably wait until Game Week 29. What's your thoughts on him, Ben?
Yeah, Arsenal away this week, which is a bit of a tough one. But Burnley away for 29 is a decent fixture to bring in Ivan Toney. I think this is one where free hitters are definitely at an advantage here with bringing Ivan Toney in. It's a decent fixture. And then either side of it, Arsenal, Manchester United, which aren't, the best fixtures going forwards for him. But even if he's not playing well, he's consistent in returns and there's always that chance he gets the penalties.
Yeah, of course. And then third up, is Carlton Morris of Luton. He's returned in his last 6 of his last 7 games, which I found out today, which is pretty impressive to be fair. Obviously, that was with Adebayo in the team and without Adebayo in the team. What's your thoughts on him, Ben? Obviously, he's on penalties. He's their leading talismanic figure. Scored loads of goals in the Championship last year. Would you be tempted by him for the double?
Yeah, definitely. I think he's probably the best Luton asset to be going for if you're going for any. Obviously, the template's so strong at the moment with the strikers. You're going to have to be getting rid of one of Haaland or Watkins for him, which might seem a little bit crazy to do. So that's the only reason. I think if we had another striker spot, he'd probably be in there with a lot of managers' teams. It's just a shame there's only 3 spots that you can pick, because otherwise I'd probably be going for him myself.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I myself have considered the Haaland down to him move just because obviously Haaland does face Liverpool away in game week 28. So a really tough fixture for him. And for me personally, other than that Luton game, Haaland's not really hit the ground running just yet since he come back from injury. So it'll be an interesting one. See what I do. Obviously, stay tuned for the team selection video come Thursday for that one. Next up is Semenyo. Obviously, we spoke about Bournemouth attackers a little bit when talking about Tavernier. He is sadly classified as a forward. He'd be unbelievable as a midfield option. But he is super cheap as well, like 4.5 million-ish. What's your thoughts on him, Ben?
Yeah, again, this is a similar situation to Morris. A lot more managers will be considering if he was classified as a midfielder rather than a forward, which is a shame. Obviously, like I said, template's so strong. So it's the same answer with Carl Morris. I think Morris is probably ahead of him because Semenyo is not so much of a talisman. But the returns are there. 2 in his last 3 fixtures. An 8-point sort of return against Newcastle, 7 points against Burnley. So yeah, it's one of those ones difficult to fit in, especially with all the strikers that we got going ahead.
Yeah, and a similar case as well for Muniz, who plays in game week 29, and potentially if you're looking to save money or you need that sort of extra striker, he's got a decent fixture against Spurs, in my opinion, in that game week 29. Fulham at home have been really good this season, and obviously Spurs away not so good. Would you be tempted by him? Obviously his fixtures more longer term are a little bit better, Ben, so this is for probably people who are not maybe planning a wild card in 30 and beyond.
Yeah, this is definitely one for those that are potentially looking at a wild card sort of a few game weeks along from now. Again, difficult. It's going to be difficult to get him in just because of how good the other strikers have been this season, and the template is so strong. So, yeah, if we were in a situation where there's a couple of injuries that come up in our strike force, Salah's coming back as well, and you need an enabler. Going into the next sort of 6-7 game weeks could be a great option to have in Muniz.
Okay, so that wraps up our Game Week 28 transfer targets. Let us know who you'll be targeting in the comments down below. For me, I'm looking at the Luton boys. Don't currently have any in my team. So Carlton Morris, Alfie Doughty, they could be featuring in my Game Week 28 squad. What about you, Ben?
Yeah, I'm looking at obviously Dom Solanke and potentially a Bournemouth defender. Not sure which one I'm going to go for yet, but that will be sort of decided in due course. And as always, if you like the video, give it a big old thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe to the FPL Graduates. And as always, I've been Ben.
I've been Josh.
And we'll see you guys
Later. Have a good game week, everyone.